Okay, I think we'll kick it off. So good morning again, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. My name's Elise, and I'm the partner manager here at EzzyBills, and we're super excited to be hosting this webinar alongside Andrew and Brooke from Cin7 and Rob from Integration Kings. Um, Welcome, everyone. Um, Rob and I hosted a similar kind of webinar last year, and we're really excited to sort of have round two and really have an enhanced partnership with Cin7, who'll be able to speak a little bit more about their product and help sort of field questions about that. Obviously, the focus will be on the connection between the two products and EzzyBills in general. But really excited to have our partners on board here to sort of help share their insights about the product, about working with clients who use the product, and sort of help give you guys some ideas and tools of what may be helpful to you. So, like the title says, from paper to power, smarter document automation with EzzyBills Cin7 and Integration Kings. Um, so let's jump in. So just to sort of go through a bit of an agenda for what we're going to cover off this morning. So we'll do welcome and introductions, which I guess we've sort of gone through at a high level. We'll then sort of have a little bit of time to speak about each of our products and businesses. So obviously EzzyBills, Cin7, and Integration Kings, and Rob and Andrew will be sort of speaking about that with their businesses. We'll speak about some common challenges in AP and inventory workflows, and while the focus of this webinar is our Cin7 integration, a lot of these sort of pain points and challenges are really relevant, to businesses just using Xero, just using QuickBooks, using, different solutions. So I think, this might be relevant. I've heard some people, might not be using Cin7, might be using Xero, might be using other systems. So definitely sort of common pain points pretty much across all businesses. We'll then sort of do a little bit more of a deep dive into the integration and talk about some of the benefits to businesses who are using it, who have used it in the past, and have some sort of case studies and, sort of live ideas and samples from clients sort of through our panelists about what people are doing with it. And then there'll be some time for Q&A and next steps at the end. Brooke will be sort of moderating the chat as we go. So feel free to pop your questions in the chat, pop your questions in the Q&A. And if the team sort of thinks they're relevant for sort of the, slides that we're addressing, what we're talking about in the moment, then she'll ask them as we go. And if they're a little bit more general or not kind of related to anything specific, then we'll definitely have some time to cover them off at the end. Okay, so about EzzyBills. So, I mean, probably many of you have heard about EzzyBills already, but if you haven't, sort of talk a little bit more at a high level. So we started close to 11 years ago, and we started primarily as a document extraction tool. But the business has really grown into what we're calling sort of a full AI-powered AP workflow solution. And so we definitely start with the data. You can't do anything unless you've got good data. So the core of the product is definitely still the data extraction piece and pushing that data into various systems such as Xero, such as Cin7. But we've also sort of moved to, really be able to run all parts of the AP. So that includes things like multi-level management approvals, purchase order matching with various systems, price checking, statement reconciliation, price match, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Something that I sort of tend to forget, because for me it's just become sort of stock standard, is line item details with every scan. And so that's something that's really across the board with all of our integrations, no matter, where you're pushing to, where you're pulling from. We include line item details with every scan. And I just had someone I met with actually earlier this morning who just, was like, this is amazing just to be able to, push into his accounting software and just be able to sort of, have screws that are sometimes used, for an internal project in his workshop and screws that are sometimes used to, fix something for a client and be able to code those two things separately at a line item level in Xero. I sometimes kind of overlook it, but thank you to Steve, who I spoke to this morning, who sort of shared that, that in and of itself was really a big win for him and his business. And I've sort of sort of skipped over it at a bit of a high level, but sort of the other piece that I think is really relevant is that we push to both project job management inventory solutions and accounting systems. And so people using Cin7 and Xero can use EzzyBills to push documents both into Cin7 and into Xero. So the Cin7 obviously are for the more inventory related expenses, and the Xero are for more accounting expenses, overhead expenses. Over to you, Andrew.
Awesome. Thank you. My name is Andrew. I'm from Cin7. I've been at Cin7 for 9 years now. I've worn a couple of different hats as the company has grown and expanded. But really, with what we do as a core is inventory management. So we're a cloud-based inventory management system. We look at act as like an order aggregator. So if you're selling retail, e-commerce, wholesale, doing some manufacturing, selling to distributors, big box retailers, we become your central point of truth, and all your orders come in to one central location. Then you can then go ahead and manage it across multiple locations or globally. And we also manage the entire full inventory cycle. So from purchasing, receiving, invoicing, capturing all the orders, then the fulfillment as well. So the pick, pack, and ship process, the warehouse management, reporting and forecasting. So we are a full end-to-end solution when it comes to inventory management. More like act like once you add on tools like say Shopify, EzzyBills, Xero would become a lightweight ERP system for modern products that are selling online or globally. And we do really deal with cloud-based systems as well. We also handle really manufacturing. So whether you're doing simple bundling and kitting all the way to chemical manufacturing, we handle the entire process from all your sub-bill of materials or your traceability. And also, we also actually have quite advanced manufacturing functionality. So if you do want to manage things like your shop floor and things like that in your manufacturing process, we can handle all of those as well. Obviously, all of this is tied into real inventory data. So at all points, we are updating other systems and our own platforms live. So every time you're pulling out reports, you want to know what's going on, what's your allocated stock, what's your available, what's on order, what's going to get received, what's in the finished goods process, work in progress reports as well. You'll be able to get that in simultaneous. Also your fulfillment too. So like what's my items to be ready to be picked, what's my ready to pack statuses, what's my ready to ship statuses. So you can get all those live figures into in our platform. Then from there you can extract out certain reports that you can customize, whether it's for certain managers, decision making, or forecasting for purchasing as well. So we really do end to end from that side. And the size of businesses we work with is quite from smaller startups doing a few hundred to a few $1,000,000 in revenue, all the way up to 50 or $100 million in revenue too, and beyond as well. We do have some enterprise plans available for people who are really growing and scaling and taking off the world with their brand. And we work with again so many different verticals, but food and beverage, wholesale, retail, e-commerce. That's where we really shine from there. We are also a global company. We have teams in Australia, New Zealand, in the US, UK, across the EMEA region as well. So wherever you are or your customers are, we're also there as well.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, and we'll hand it over to Rob to share a bit about
Yeah, thanks, Elise, and
his
thanks
business.
for inviting us along to get involved with the webinar today. I'm Rob, the founder of Integration Kings. I've been working in the software implementation space for well and truly over 10 years. My first sort of working in this space started in 2009. Back then I was a chartered accountant. I'm still a chartered accountant. I was one of the early adopters of Xero. As a result, I met a lot of apps and helped clients with selecting apps and deployments. We're now a team of 14, and we've been a long-term partner with Cin7 as well. So our relationship with Cin7 Core goes all the way back to 2012 when it was called Dear Systems, and we've been working with the product ever since. We help clients with first understanding, the different application layers in their business and flushing that out correctly, so that I liken it to an analogy that I've got a problem over here. I could just rush in and put a band-aid on it and fix it. We don't believe in doing that because it will eventually fester, become a sore, and something else will happen. So we go in, analyze, take a step back with our clients, analyze everything, map out the different apps they need, and help them then implement those app layers into their business. The main reason we've partnered with EzzyBills is more and more of our clients are using Cin7, Xero, and QuickBooks. Predominantly in the past, if they just had Xero and then they grew into Cin7, they might have had an app like Dext, and then they're like, now Rob, I want to measure line item accuracy of the documentation, and I don't want to have one tool for Xero and one tool for Cin7. I want to have one tool I can feed all my paperwork into, match to the PO, and have some smarts around approvals and processing. So hence we've been working with EzzyBills in this space to offer, make sure our clients have a solution that actually covers a full range of solutions they need in one app, rather than having to have multiple apps with different processes in that space. So EzzyBills does help a lot in that, and hence we wanted to get involved. Quite a few of our clients of late have taken advantage of that. So previously they would be manually matching a supplier invoice to a purchase order and getting it approved to be paid. With EzzyBills help, we can make that a lot more streamlined. So, and our clients range from, someone doing a couple of mil to clients doing 50 mil turnover sort of style businesses. Typically, when you're working with us, you normally have a lot of complexity, or you really wanting to go a step further around automation than what you're currently doing in your business, and sort of leverage the power of technology that's in the market. We are having a lot of people coming with questions on AI of late, which is always interesting. AI, the concept of it and the functionality has been around for quite some time. I think there's a lot of hype in that space at the moment, and some of it's relevant, but I'm always, go back to doing things with something that actually is already mapped out and is using AI, rather than trying to build it from scratch, is a better option, just from our experience so far. But today I'm interested in just getting a bit of a demo of EzzyBills and seeing what everyone's questions are. Thanks for inviting us on.
No problem. Thanks so much, Rob. And I think I'm still surprised, to be honest, sort of in a post-COVID era, and sort of where things are at with technology, the number of businesses that I still speak to, and I say, okay, so talk to me about what your AP looks like, and they're like, well, we've got 6 staff members that work full time and enter invoices into our system, and there's a better way. And there's a better way with OCR technology. There's a better way with AI technology. There's a better way than having, your intern running around with a piece of paper to get somebody to sign off on an expense with their pen. So that's what we're going to jump into a little bit deeper. So let's go. As everyone's kind of alluded to, I've kind of alluded to it, Rob's kind of alluded to it. We've got manual re-entry of supplier invoices into 2 systems. So Cin7's got a great integration with Xero directly. So it's quite a common workflow for people to say, well, I'll enter my invoices into Cin7, and then Cin7 will push them through to Xero, which is great. But we can sort of help with that additional step of getting the invoices automated into Cin7. And again, like sort of Rob alluded to, with other pieces of software that push only directly into Xero, you're still missing that kind of piece of invoices going into your inventory systems. You've then potentially got different, data in different places. Some data might have lines, some data might not have lines, some might be automated, some might be manual. And it can obviously create a bit of a mess when you're dealing with reporting and tracking and all those other really important pieces of your business. And there can be delays in approvals. And again, like I said, someone chasing them around the office, someone's not in, someone's sick, someone's working remotely, someone's, out of the office meeting, with clients, and all of a sudden they're not available to approve things, and then invoices are paid late and creditors get annoyed. And again, I don't need to tell anybody sort of what some of those, challenges that costs. And you've also got sort of a lack of visibility between the different teams. You've sort of got your finance team probably working in Xero or I guess as an aside, we fully integrate with QuickBooks and MYOB as well. So if you're working with any of those systems, we can integrate just like we can with Xero. But I guess Xero tends to be where the majority of our customers are, but I always do like to mention QuickBooks and MYOB as well. So you've got your sort of accounting team working in your accounting platform, but then you've got your operations team working in, Cin7, your inventory platform, and it makes it a bit challenging if you've got, different data sets. Somebody's entering data quickly because they've got to go to manufacturing, and other people are doing it a bit slower because the creditors take a month to get paid. Whatever it is, it can lead to a lot of mess and chaos.
Hey, Elise, we have a question if you want to
Yeah.
answer that. From Angela Redmond. She says, I have employees that input invoices and then they have to put payments in. Is it possible for the system to receive payment as well?
Thanks, Angela, for your question. That's a great question. We don't deal with the payment side. In EzzyBills, I'm not sure, Rob or Andrew, if you guys sort of know of other tools that might help with that piece of it. But that's not something that we deal with directly.
I'm curious about the question, to be honest, personally. Are we talking payments, like allocating payment from a remittance to a customer's invoice, or are we talking, taking the supplier invoice and getting it paid, Angela? Because there's two sides. Typically, most of the automation tools in the market at the moment don't do the execution of payment. So they'll basically help you process a supplier invoice, get it into the AP position, approved to be paid in Xero. And then we normally recommend you integrate something like Air Wallets, which you can then suck it into that banking program and authorize payments in there and do the payments and all the workflow around the banking, rather than doing it manually through something like Westpac with a batch file and all that type of stuff. But if that's on the supplier side, that we do get clients request, hey, I've got a remittance coming in from a customer and I want to mark it off paid in Xero, so then it's paid in Cin7. So where there is some solutions there, if you need to, just reach out to us on it. I'll let you continue, Elise.
Cool. Okay. Okay, so I guess just in terms of a little bit more detailed of sort of how it works, and then we'll sort of swap over to the actual app and sort of jump in. So again, like people may or may not be familiar with in other systems, the most common workflow would be you receive your supplier invoices via email. You can then email them or drag and drop them into EzzyBills. The line items are extracted, and then there's different options for different workflows. So you've got the option to route them through approval workflows first before they get pushed through. So you might say that if something is from a certain department, it goes to a certain manager, or if it's over a certain dollar value, it goes to another manager, or if it goes from a certain supplier, then it routes to a different manager. And I'll show you in a minute what sort of that looks like in app. And then the way that the sort of Cin7 integration works is that you raise your PO in Cin7, the invoice comes in and matches against the PO, and then they sync to Cin7 and Cin7 Core and to Xero. And then we also have workflows where if no PO exists, we can sort of auto create a PO. So you basically can send in the invoice and then sort of use a specific workflow that tells the system that you haven't created a PO. We can auto create the PO using that invoice and then match in that invoice and receipt it off. And then if you have expenses that only need to go to Xero, overhead expenses, your rent, your utilities, your accounting bills, you can choose to send those just to Xero and not to Cin7. So we will now just jump into the app. So again, not going to sort of go through the whole app in a lot of detail, but just at a high level. So we've got the ability to do sort of multi-entity or single entity. So if you've got multi-entity, we can sort of activate a multi-entity dashboard. You've got the ability to sort of add users, um, track usage across the different entities, and set up sort of a few things at sort of that HQ level. And that way, sort of the settings can be set up pretty consistently across the different entities. If you've got a single entity, then you can just set it up as a single entity and connect your Cin7 and your Xero to that entity. So this is basically what a single entity dashboard kind of looks like. And as I've alluded to before, you can use email, drag and drop. And if you do have employees that have expense claims or sort of have credit card receipts for things that they're at and about purchasing, we're not going to go into that today, but just as a high level, just so you know, it's something we can also do, and that can also be integrated with any of the approval workflows and also be integrated either with Cin7 or Xero or both. So our workflows are, again, highly customizable. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just to give you an idea, we might send something through an approval level. And that could be, like I mentioned before, based on dollar value, based on supplier, based on PO match. So you can say, well, any invoices that match to a PO directly go straight through to Cin7. But if you've got either a percentage tolerance or dollar value tolerance, then send to somebody for review. So we've got all of those different options, and you can set it up in multiple levels as well. So you could have, like I said, the first approval over $1,000, the next one over 5,000, and the next one over 20,000, or whatever the case may be, and that can be fully set up, based on the requirements of your business. So what we do when we work with businesses is we really just try to understand what are those processes that you're already doing, and we basically try to build workflows that sort of mirror those processes. So what I'm going to do now is, because I haven't created a purchase order yet in Cin7, I'm going to grab a Bunnings bill and use that to create a purchase order in Cin7. And then once we've created the purchase order, I'll show you sort of what it looks like to push through the bill, which will again receipt against that purchase order and sort of close it off. So while we're sort of waiting, I don't know if anybody has any questions or anybody sort of wants to jump in with anything.
Yeah, Elise, there were two other questions that came up a little bit earlier. I guess one was related to Angela's question, but Miriam saying, I would like to give the directors a workflow to check payments and approve them without having to authorize the actual payment in banking software.
So again, we don't deal with authorizing payments per se. We deal with authorizing supplier invoices. So just like you can see on this screen now, sorry, yeah.
I was going to say a solution to that would be, Elise just showed on screen the workflows. So you could build out a workflow saying supplier invoices being processed, and then you could have those that are authorized to make the payment having to come in and basically rubber stamp it, authorized for payment. And then you could have the workflow that if that person has not rubber stamped it, it wouldn't appear in the AP in Xero to be paid. So you can, without us executing the payment, we could set up that workflow in there where we have some control over it, which EzzyBills would be a good solution for. And the business case you just highlighted there, Elise, I like that one because it's showing, we get a lot of clients that go, but I got Cin7, but I have to log into a portal to put my purchase order in there, and then you're expecting me to key it back in the Cin7 so I can receive in against it. So they could be using EzzyBills to get all those POs that they're putting in all these POs with all their suppliers on portals, and using EzzyBills to create all the POs to receive the stock in against, instead of paying a staff member to sit there and key it into the screen, which in this day and age is a complete waste of anyone's time. Labor's getting expensive.
Yeah, actually, and just to sort of go one step further, so until now, the only way we've been able to create POs is basically what I'm showing now, that you've actually got an invoice and you sort of tell the system that that invoice is a PO and then you can receipt it in. But we're actually just in development of a complete PO builder that'll actually act as that portal to actually create POs. So if you've got staff that are, creating POs from scratch, so to speak, we're working on a PO builder. We'll be able to pull in all of your items and let staff create POs as well. So that is something to stay tuned for. So in terms of the approval, and again, everything in EzzyBills can sort of be done with or without approval. But as you can sort of see on the dashboard, this has now gone to approval. So we can click on the doc ID and we can see all the information that we've extracted. So we've got, the supplier, the tax, the total, the line items, which is obviously key. And all of this can be reviewed, edited, et cetera, et cetera. And then, this is the point where if you've got, let's say, a Cin7 workflow set up and you wanted to swap, let's say, to zero, because this is actually an overhead expense, let's say, that just needs to go through to zero. As part of this approval screen, we've got this switch workflow, and you could just change it from your PO create in Cin7 or your PO match in Cin7 or whatever it is, to something that just goes straight through to zero. So it's really easy to just sort of toggle back and forth between the workflows depending on, what the invoice is and where it needs to go. And again, depending on what degree of automation you sort of want to move towards, you can also automate some of this stuff. So you could say, well, the Telstra bill, for example, is always going to be zero only workflow. So you could set up a workflow for Telstra bills that just go to zero. And, you don't even have to go through this process of allocating which workflow it goes to. What we'll do is we'll approve that. That'll create a PO in Cin7. I'll show you what that PO looks like. And then we will receipt in the bill. Just a couple tips and tricks about the setup while we're waiting for that to go through. So this isn't a great example, but we do recommend in the settings menu just to kind of set up some of these pieces. So things like the time zone and location. When we do the approvals, we do have date and time stamps on each of the documents. And so these are based on kind of the time zone that you select here. So we just recommend having that set up. And also the ABN and company name that basically acts as helpers and exclusion. So sometimes we'll see a document with two sets of information on the invoice, and we won't necessarily know what your business's details are and what your supplier business's details are. So having this will basically tell us, okay, this is your company's details, and therefore look to the other sort of set of contact information in the ABN to grab the supplier's details. So we have created a purchase order. I apologize, we do have to update all of our UI to say Cin7, so hopefully we will work on that. So I apologize, Andrew, for that. But as you can see here, we've just pushed through a document that looks like an invoice. We've told it to create a purchase order. And you can see here, we've got a purchase order. You've got all the line items sort of ready to go. We will then authorize the purchase order. And then again, depending on whether you've got it set up as stock first or invoice first, EzzyBills will sort of have to follow that setup. So just a note on that, because that's sometimes where we see some error handling with the stock first versus invoice first. You've just got to make sure that's consistent. Were there any questions?
Yeah, at least we got a couple of others. One from Kim. Kim is asking, does this work for other accounting systems such as MYOB? as well, or Zero only?
Yeah, so I did mention it, but happy to reiterate. So yeah, we work with Xero, MYOB, and QuickBooks as the main pieces of accounting software. So yeah, if you're using any of those platforms, the integration is virtually the same. Yeah, good question.
Yeah. And then another from Rosella saying we still have some suppliers whose invoices do not include item codes and only show product descriptions. In some cases, three different supplier descriptions may actually correspond to a single product in our system. How would the system handle mapping scenarios like this? Is this possible, or would it trigger an alert for manual review?
It's a really good question, and a question that we get a lot from clients using inventory. So what we've sort of come up with to deal with these kinds of scenarios is what we call like a change part workflow. And we can do this ideally based on SKUs, but we can also do it based on what we call fuzzy matching or just description matching of the items. So if your, supplier's SKU is A, B, C, D, and your SKU is 1, 2, 3, 4, for a screw, we can actually sort of map that in the system, and then we can make sure that the parts are matched appropriately when they're going through. And it's also fine if, you've got 5 different suppliers with, 5 different part numbers and they all match to a single part number in your system because it's basically the same item just coming from different suppliers. And we can handle that use case as well.
Awesome. We have a lot of good questions coming in. Greg is asking, when handling stock purchase
Yeah,
invoices
great.
and landed cost. Yeah. Yeah. Freight forwarding, customs invoices. How does EzzyBills distinguish between creating the invoice against the Cin7 Core PO stock purchase invoice for matching across the stock receives and creating landed cost invoice as service purchase invoice? Since in Core, there's like 2 types of purchases that are handled differently, especially for capitalizing landed cost expense to stock cost price.
Okay, that's a big question.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go back in and read it.
From my understanding, I get where Greg's coming from. So we've got the 2 different types of transactions in Core. So we've got a supplier invoice of materials, which would go into either stock valuation, and then we might have a freight invoice that comes in for, let's say it's some importing costs. It's just for landing the container and ready for sale. So you could definitely use EzzyBills to get that transaction into Cin7, but the allocation methodology where you go in and make a determination on how you want to absorb that cost into your landed costs will always have to be done within the UX, within Cin7, because that's a human making a decision on how to attribute that into the landed cost of the product. So I would, even if we could automate it, I would never actually recommend having that automated. I'd also have someone with the experience determining how to absorb that into the landed cost of the products. Because we're working with businesses over the years, everyone does different ways and methodologies how they will apportion that over the landed cost of their products. So I think, yeah, you can definitely use it to get it in there, but you still have to do some work in Core on it.
Yeah, and just to add to that, there's a lot of complexity that comes with managing that landed cost, right? So you get your landed cost invoice. You might have 3, 4 different line items on there. Maybe 2 only are going to get then attributed to against POs for the landed cost, and the other 2 might not be relevant or legally you can't attribute them. And then from there, we have some enhancements that we have rolled out over the years to attribute it by volume, weight, by the number of units, or whether it's just a proportion against the dollar value. Again, there's a lot of just complexities that does require, as Rob said, human decisions on what needs to be done there. So again, yeah, something that lives within our UI and UX, and yeah, there's quite a bit of decision that needs to go into it.
Cool. Okay. I did see there were questions about Workflow Max and Simpro. The short answer is yes, we do integrate both with Workflow Max and Simpro, but because we are working with Cin7 on this webinar, we're going to sort of focus on that. But we definitely do integrate with Workflow Max and Simpro, and you're welcome to get in touch with us at support, and we're happy to help answer your questions around those integrations as well.
Just want to give a little bit more feedback for Greg's question. I would say recommend for Greg to definitely get in contact with Elise and Michael, and yeah, go through what you're trying to automate and provide feedback, and definitely they'll be able to, like from my experience, they'll be able to have a look at it, review it with you, and see if it's feasible to do it through automation external to Cin7 with pulling documents in. Obviously, some things aren't feasible because of the way the system's run, but yeah, they're definitely being willing to review those improvements, that might add value to the product.
Cool. Okay. Sorry, Rob or Andrew,
You want to see the header?
do you mind just reminding me where to change that from the stock first to the invoice first?
So if you click on, see where the little up arrow, your program's hiding the header. So see where it says save as preset. There should be a little up arrow to display the header on the document. That little
Just right next to it.
That little arrow, change that.
All right, yeah, cool, amazing.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you. Okay, so like I said, we've got to make sure it's invoice first, or the stock actually has to be received. So that is what happened there. So we've updated that, and hopefully that should now go through. Cool. Okay. So we've now receipted in the invoice, and we can see here we had the original order. We've now got the invoice. We've got all the line items that have come through. We don't have any in this case, but let's say, it wasn't identical and there was a freight charge that was added or something like that. We would just add it at the bottom as additional costs. And we would do sort of a trust invoice kind of model. So if the PO, asked for something for $5 and it came through with $6, the invoice would obviously have the $6 that's on the invoice. And we also do support sort of multiple to one. So if you've got, you order 10 hammers on your purchase order, only 5 come in, and we'll do sort of a partial invoice, and we'll leave that PO open so that we can sort of push in the next one when it comes in for the remaining quantity of stock. Questions?
Chris is asking, yes, there should be a recording, I believe, after this.
Yes, we'll send out a recording.
Perfect. And then another question is Cin7 required for processing PO? Cin7 part of EzzyBills.
Cin7 is not part of EzzyBills. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, no, it is a good question, because I guess over the years we've built a pretty strong API to allow companies like EzzyBills to really integrate deeply into Cin7. That's why you see a lot of automation back and forth, and it might feel like one platform, and I think that's the aim here. But there are different softwares that are stacked together. Cin7 is an inventory management application, and we connect to Xero and also connect to EzzyBills. And EzzyBills, what it does is really, for inventory-based businesses specifically, automate a lot of that PO processing. A lot of inventory businesses that we deal with tend to have a lot of POs going back and forth. So for new season stock, all season stock, future stock. So there's a lot of POs to manage, and EzzyBills does a great job at automating all of that, automating the creation and then also pulling it in, so you're not double entering it in multiple different portals. But it is a separate platform, and Rob's team is been working with us for many years now, creating these tech stacks and guiding them for businesses across different verticals. So I'll leave it to let Rob maybe explain a little bit of the tech stack a little bit more. Maybe it was our fault not being more clear on that, but give it to Rob to share some light and give some feedback there as well.
Yeah, I can see the question sort of expanded there, Andrew. So,
Yeah.
so EzzyBills is an automation tool, document automation tool. But predominantly, if you're using Cin7 and Xero, and you need to raise a purchase order out to your customer for your supplier to buy stock in, the primary go-to space which you would sit in and do that is Cin7. Okay, you would only use EzzyBills to create the purchase order into Cin7 in two situations. I see it as one, you worked out in Cin7 off reporting what you want to buy, and your supplier won't accept your PO out of Cin7, and they make you log into a portal and key it in there, and you're like, well, that's a waste of my time then rekeying it into Cin7. So you would literally export the PO you punched into their portal and put it for EzzyBills and create it in Cin7. Essentially, you need the purchase order in Cin7 because someone in your warehouse is going to receive a pallet of stock, and they have to have something to receive it against, because the system is Cin7's controlling, I've got a PO, did I receive all the stock? Did I receive the bill? What is the value of that whole process? What EzzyBills is doing is just supercharging the manual human parts that you probably got staff doing, keying stuff into screens. So it's basically whether it's matching, bringing the PO in off a portal, or if you didn't want your staff in Cin7 processing the PO when they launch their new module, you could create the PO in EzzyBills, but I wouldn't recommend it. And you can just use EzzyBills with Xero if you're just using Xero or something else. To answer that question. And there's another question, can we create quotes in Cin7? Yeah, I mean, the short of the answer, there's two ways to do that. You could do that natively already in Cin7. There's a tool that allows us to bring in paperwork and create that in a quote from that, or a sales order from that. If you needed more complexity around the approval workflows and you wanted multiple people to approve it and create the sale order in Cin7 or the quote, yes, EzzyBills could help with that as well. So just depending on the use case, there's multiple ways for us to address it.
Cool. Thanks for those questions. I think, yeah, I always like when there's good questions. I always think back to my year 6 teacher who always used to say, if you're thinking of a question, chances are someone else in the room is thinking about it as well. So, yeah, that sort of knowledge sharing really, really helps everyone. So I think probably by this stage, a lot of these benefits are, sort of pretty clear from what you've seen and heard from myself and the others, but I guess just to address them a little bit more specifically, so you don't have that manual data entry, you've got fewer errors, you've got less costs, to pay staff to sit and manually enter data. You've got the approvals that go through quicker. Your first level approver approves it. There's automatically an email that goes to the second one. They automatically approve it, goes through to Cin7, goes through to the third approver, whatever the case may be. You can see your cash flow and outstanding bills. You've got sort of controls on what's going on. And this is a big one. I don't know, Rob will definitely support me on this one, that, sometimes businesses might think, oh, my business is too small, we don't necessarily need this yet. But I think when you've got good systems in place, when your business is smaller, it makes it much easier than, someone like Rob getting a call when you're doing $50 million and saying you've got, no process in place. It makes it much more difficult to kind of, try to go back and build things from the beginning.
I think the thing that I've learned over the years, like, it was a very different landscape back in 2009, 2010, 11, when Xero first burst in on the scenes. But when you look at it now, if you were to flatten your business out and build it from scratch again today in the modern age, you would leverage technology to as much nth degree as possible, because, as I said it before, labor is expensive. If you took, if we did everything manually that EzzyBills did and timed it, you're probably spending a certain amount of minutes on that workflow. And even though you might be quite small, you go, oh, that's manual, it's my own time. But then when you have to go then transition, you grow a bit, you have to transition that to another person. Well, it's a hell of a lot harder to do than when you're small, put EzzyBills in, get the good behaviors, get the automation flowing. And you might find the time of when you need to start hiring a person, you've grown a lot more than if you were doing it all manual and you're like, I just don't, I'm up at night trying to do this, or I've given it to the other half to try and do it. And they're just like, I don't like doing this. Trying to scale a business is important to leverage technology in this day and age. And you just have to do the simple calcs. If it takes you 5 minutes to put the transaction in, and based on Australian award rates, it's $30 an hour. Crunch that out. Pretty sure 20 cents a document is cheaper than your own time. It always trumps the labor calculation from my experience. So I think we should all embrace it and put it as much as we can into our businesses to automate things. And take a look at my background. I didn't go to uni and do a CA and other certifications to sit glorified putting a piece of paper into a screen. I think that's, as humans, that's really it's not a good use of our time.
And it's amazing how many people do. I see people all the time with, signatures, accountant, bookkeeper, senior bookkeeper, and that's all they're doing. And we want to use our brains. We want to, be productive for businesses. So, yeah, implementing some of these systems will definitely free up time and yeah, just allow businesses to grow in amazing ways.
And just add
so I know we've had a
thing
lot of
extra
questions.
just want to add one thing extra to that perspective, but I don't think we've ever worked with a business where people become automatically redundant either. So the reality is, most of the time with all the clients we've ever worked with, that person who's been doing this data entry input, plus probably wearing some other hats in the business, knows the business better than going and grabbing another person outside the business and trying to bring them in. So normally they end up being upskilled and repositioned or given more and higher value role capability than's been stuck in the data entry. And that's a positive outcome. So I don't think AI replaces jobs. I think it enhances them.
For sure. Amazing. We've had some good questions as we've gone, but I guess now that we're sort of coming to the end, just want to open it up again with any questions that you haven't had a chance to ask or you sort of been thinking about. We'll give it a moment if anyone wants to think of any other questions. While you are thinking about that, everyone on this call has kindly been generous enough to share their direct contact. So, if you want to know more about EzzyBills, feel free to reach out to me directly. Same with Rob at Integration Kings and Andrew at Cin7. If you have any questions, want to learn more, want to follow up any questions about any other systems. Both EzzyBills and Cin7 offer free trials. Ours is 14 days or 100 documents. I believe Cin7's is also 14 days, but Andrew, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I guess, my goal with these webinars is not to sort of end a conversation, it's to start it. So hopefully, there's sort of the opportunity today to start a conversation that'll, continue with those of us in the room and our businesses. And, we can just continue working to help you automate your businesses.
There was there's a few questions coming in.
Yeah, go for it, Brooke.
Yeah. Greg followed up about, I don't know if you want to read it, Elise, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for Greg's benefit, it would probably be really beneficial, Greg, and I'm from experience, to do a session one-on-one with Elise and Michael. Michael's on the call today. But yeah, to go through those types of situations you've got, because definitely we've had clients with similar situations and a big chunk of it can be automated.
Yep, agreed.
Cool. Okay, Karen, it looks like you're just asking for a contact number and name. You're welcome either to email me or email support@ezzydoc.com, and we'll just ideally with your username, your EzzyBills username, and we'll just take a look at your account and see if you've already got someone sort of assigned as your account manager, and or someone that can speak to you. So feel free to reach out to me directly, and happy to just follow it up in the best way. Okay, any other final thoughts, questions, ideas? Anything else from the panelists? Amazing. Well, I think we're finished sort of perfectly on time. So thank you again, everyone, so much for joining. Thank you so much to Rob from Integration Kings and Andrew and Brock from Cin7. It's really been great.